Thank you so much, Chamberlain. I tell you, this issue of fixing prices for food in the midst of this high cost of living in Nigeria, seems is a very long time away from getting to an end, because yesterday I had a conversation, of course, the same conversation with Mr. Ruwani, and he is not so much in agreement with fixing prices, because I think Kayla did allude to something like that. This is what is happening in electricity, for instance. The discos are saying because prices are fixed, then they are not at liberty to put in all they could have for operations. You know, putting large investments and knowing that you don't have the liberty to choose the price that will cover up your investment. So what does that, that could do is that investors could hold back their investment, or they could create a window, you know, an illegal window. That's the black market. That's where we have for the FX black market, so that through that window they could trade as they want. And we know that the CBN is now trying to open up that space between the black, and I said the white market, and the official market, you know. So this is an ongoing conversation, and very interesting to have a senior advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Femi Falana, delve into it. Of course, he was even the one who took the matter to court. But anyway, let's delve into Business Morning on Sunrise. Good morning, everyone. I'm Ini John Mekwa. We start off as usual in the global space with prices that were little changed on Friday, staying on track for weekly gains, with tensions persisting in the Middle East after Israel rejected a ceasefire offer from Hamas. Looking at the numbers right there, we see, well, we actually did hit $80 for Brent, and this is first time in about a week we've hit $80, but it's going down again, down 0.16% at $81.50 a barrel. WTI also, you know, they go the same direction most of the time, substitutes, but this has no hit 80 yet. It's always cheaper. This is sweet, it's easier to refine, and this is $76.18 for a barrel. And U.S. officials made their most pointed criticism so far of Israel's civilian casualties in Gaza as it turned the focus of its offensive to Rafah. Also, Hamas delegation arrived in Cairo. They did that yesterday for a ceasefire talks. We hope to get good results from there. Now, non-OPEC output from Norway and Guyana is increasing, while Russia is exporting more crude in February than it's planned, following a combination of drone attacks and technical outages at its refineries that could undermine its pledge to curb sales under an OPEC Plus pact. A whole lot of things hitting the prices of crude from different fronts. Still talking from the oil sector now, but coming back to Nigeria, the NNPC Limited and the Central Bank of Nigeria have come to terms to define clear boundaries regarding the management of revenue generated by the oil corporation, following the meeting that was held yesterday between the CBN and the NNPCL. The Apex Bank is to hold a significant portion of NNPCL revenue from oil sales, and this is coming after the directive by the President Bola Tinubu, for the NNPCL to transfer revenue from crude oil sales to the Central Bank of Nigeria. Ms. Amele Kieri and Dr. Olaimi Kadoso both shared optimism about the agreement.
We understand very clearly that this review of our decision to move significant portion of our revenues to the Central Bank of Nigeria is very timely. We made that decision to align with the directives of our Board of Directors to maintain safe obligor limits with commercial banks. And for us to do this, we do need an additional support, particularly from the Central Bank, to achieve this. We're a very huge company. Our transaction and liquidity levels are very high, and perhaps we are the largest business in this country. And we're also happy that the CBN has created very, very robust digital platform for our transactions, and also created a department that will deal with NNPC issues, and it will create no hindrance to our operation. We will continue to collaborate with the Central Bank of Nigeria to ensure that further improvements are received, to ensure that this relationship serves the best interests of our company and, of course, ultimately our country.
We have come to this particular stage where the NNPC has made the decision to move its respectable part of its business to the Central Bank of Nigeria. And I also want to say that we have restructured and strengthened our internal processes such that we will be very capable of taking on this enormous responsibility that will be placed in the central bank.
All right, so we look forward to perhaps more transparency, in the reporting of revenue from our crude. That is the essence of that. So we look forward to that with the handshake between those two big guys at the top. Now let's go to the grain space. Now, Chicago soybeans slid on Friday with prices under pressure from expectations of higher world supplies, even as forecasters reduced their production estimate for top exporter Brazil. Corn eased with the market poised for a second weekly loss, while wheat firmed, although prices were set to end the week in a negative territory. The most active soybean contracts on the Chicago Board of Trade traded down 0.1% at $11.92 for a bushel. The market, which dropped this week to its lowest level since December 2020, has climbed 0.3% so far this week. Corn was also down 0.4% at $4.31 for 3/4 of a bushel. Wheat was on the flip side, 0.3% higher, $5.90 for a bushel. For the week, corn is down 2.5%, while wheat has lost 1.7%. The soybean market is facing headwinds amid abundant world supplies and slowing demand from top importer China, offsetting the impact of low output, which is expected from Brazil. Remember, Brazil is the world's #1 exporter. And then we come back home in Nigeria. Now, we thank God the President Bola Tinubu, has been talking on the recent protests and high cost of living, which has led to those protests. Now, the president is giving some orders, and we hope to see those implemented. As part of the solutions, he's directed the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security to immediately release 42,000 metric tons of maize, millet, and other commodities in strategic reserve to ensure that food becomes more readily available for Nigerians. The Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, stated this at the State House after a meeting of the Presidential Committee on Emergency Food Intervention. He said that Rice Millers Association of Nigeria is also committed to release about 60,000 metric tons of rice and make it available in the markets.
The first one is that the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security has been directed to release about 42,000 metric tons of maize, millet, and other commodities, gari and other commodities as in their strategic reserve, so that these items will be made available to Nigerians, 42,000 metric tons immediately. The second one is that we have held meetings with the Rice Millers Association of Nigeria, those who are responsible for producing this rice, and we have asked them to open up their stores. They've told us that they can guarantee about 60,000 metric tons of rice. They will make that available to Nigerians to bring it out to the market so that food will be made available. Now, the whole idea of this is to crash the cost of these food items. And these are measures that will happen immediately if it becomes absolutely necessary as an interim measure on the short run to also import some of these commodities immediately so that these commodities can be made available to Nigerians immediately within the next couple of weeks. Now, all these are emergency measures. There is, of course, a directive to the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security to invest massively in conjunction with Nigerian farmers and other producers so that we can have better season coming shortly.
I think the minister used the word immediately about 3 times there, but I mean, in spite of that, we do know that from when these directives are given to when it really is implemented and gets to the people who really need them, there's always a time lag. So if that is accelerated, that would be a good one. And the other side is, obviously, these are short-term measures. The longer measure would be for us to boost our supply of food. And that brings us to the conversation of insecurity, a large one for the government, I must say, at this time, with the rate of kidnappings going on and, attacks, especially in rural areas where the farms and the farmers are. So I guess the government has its job cut out for it. Now, a couple of days ago, we had on Sunrise Daily, the DG of NAFDAC, and she did tell us about the banning of spirit drinks in Sachet. They've been given some time to effect this. Of course, you expect reactions. And one of those who have reacted is the manufacturers. They are talking about investments and jobs that could be affected. But how do you balance this with health? Because you only have to stay alive, especially because they said it's, running down to the youth. The youths are getting these sachets easily because it's more affordable than the bottles and all of that. So how do you balance the health dangers and the jobs that could be affected in all of this? Well, we have the managing director of MAN, Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, Mr. Segun Ajayi-Kadri, joining us virtually from Lagos. Mr. Kadri, good morning and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm Director General, not Managing Director.
Director General, I thought that's what I said. I beg your pardon, it's Director General, DG. All right, Mr. Kadri. So your association has been talking about the possible loss of jobs and investments could be discouraged and all of that. But I mean, a lot of people are also weighing this side by side with the health hazard that comes with these sachets. I mean, it's not like the companies should not produce, but it's the sachet that NAFDAC is talking about.
Okay, so I think first, I'd like to thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to join you to exchange views. And all that we are doing is to build Nigeria in such a way that we have a healthy balance between consideration for business and consideration for the citizenry. So I think what NAFDAC is talking about is something that has to do with access to alcoholic beverage by underage citizens. That is those that are below the age of 18. So what they're actually talking about is not the environmental impact of the sachet or the plastics and so on that they are talking about. What they are saying is an issue of access. So what NAFDAC is trying to achieve is a situation where young people do not have access to alcohol, which they feel if it comes in smaller quantities, in smaller packages, they are likely to have access to it. And that's the contention here. And what we are saying is that, yes, we have concerns for young people. I mean, MAN is a responsible business membership organization. We prioritize health above profit. We prioritize the well-being of Nigerians above profit. And I think the position we have taken has not distracted from this conviction and this principle. So we are on the same page with NAFDAC in terms of ensuring that underage people are protected. The only disagreement we have is the approach which NAFDAC has taken is patently unhelpful. It doesn't help the citizenry, neither does it help business. We are saying that it is better for us to have a fact-based, scientific basis for taking action that will affect the well-being of the overall citizen. Not only the people, not only business, but what will promote Nigeria. And that is the conversation we are having here.
So have you looked at it as MAN, to see if you think this decision by NAFDAC is not being taken based on empirical evidence? Have you done that? Do you have data or anything to push to have an opposing view?
Yes, certainly, because we have been part of the process since the last 5 years when the agreement was signed. There was an interministerial committee that was set up. Man is by his members, by DBAN, they are there. We have Federal Competition and Consumer Protection. We have NAFDAC. We also have the Ministry of Health. We have been engaged in a conversation that has mapped out plans which we have religiously implemented and spent more than ₦1 billion to be able to do education, to be able to put in regulations that will restrict access by underage people. We also have cooperated with them, and we are making progressive inroads into limiting this access. And we have evidence to show that we are achieving success. As a matter of fact, the committee itself commissioned a survey, a research into what milestones have been achieved. And what it showed is that a ban will be counterproductive, and that restriction of access, improving on it, enforcing strict regulations, and setting tasking activities for all those that are involved in order to be able to achieve 100% restriction was online to be implemented. So we never imagined that with all this progress that is being made, a ban will now be imposed. So to answer your question directly, we think that the ban is not helpful because it's going to actually open the floodgate for illicits to enter into the market. There are sales of Paraga, which is the unwholesome alternative to this alcohol in PET bottles, in PET. So it is not helpful. It is actually being penny wise pound foolish, if I may use the word, because it won't lead to the achievement of your objective. The only thing is that you are effectively closing the shop of those who make wholesome products, those who you can regulate, those whose factory you know and you can have a conversation with them, vis-a-vis those that you cannot hold, you do not know where they operate, you do not know the composition, and you are also opening the gate for influx of those foreign ones that you have no control over their standards. So what we are saying is that if it is already in the market, you needed to be able to regulate and control it rather than ban. This is not to talk of the social implication of that. Everywhere in the country now is difficult. Mr. President is battling with how to improve on the situation of the citizenry. We do not need people out of job. There are 500,000 people that we are talking about here. And what we are saying is that rather than listen to or rather than accept the narrative that is being given, the fact is that the health of the people are not being jeopardized. There's no scientific basis for it on what is being alleged. And NAFDAC has not shown anything other than the general impression that if children take alcohol, they are going to suffer illnesses. Of course, even adults. If you take alcohol in excess, it will have repercussions. But you are not showing any evidence that they are having access to it, and that's what is responsible. If I may just tell you, Tramadol is far more dangerous. The PET bottles we are talking about, the space it will occupy in your pocket, which is what they are giving, you have more than 20 tablets of Tramadol. How do you restrict that? So what we are saying is that, is it wise? Is that the best thing to do? Are there no alternatives? Can't we have a conversation that allows you to progressively achieve what you want to achieve, rather than putting people out of job? 2 days ago, the labor union and the NLC and TUC invaded my head office, demanding that they want their jobs back, that the factories have been closed. And they didn't think that it was justified. I had to even appeal to them that they do not match on NAFDAC. And we'll be having this conversation trying to ensure that NAFDAC achieves its objective and we also achieve our objective, so all in the interest of industrialization in Nigeria and the well-being of the people.
So how do you hope to approach this now? What do you do next? I know you're having a meeting today. We intend to be there, obviously. What do you hope to do? And it sounds like manufacturers and NAFDAC have not been talking. Perhaps that's where the problem stems from.
Yes, we've been engaging. But I think NAFDAC has taken the end of the matter from the beginning. So they have determined that they are going to impose the ban. I mean, because it was said that in 5 years we are going to have a ban. So 5 years is here, we should have the ban. But they have discounted all the progress that has been made in the last 5 years. So our conversation has been, yes, we all, and we both agree on the end objective is to restrict access. But it is the journey to that restriction that is the issue. They believe that ban is it, without taking into cognizance the negative impact it's going to have on the people they want to protect, and of course on the businesses that are engaged in that process.
So, Mr. Kadi, do you have...
we are communicating.
Do you have, like, you know, a better, well-researched strategy to restrict, especially the youth, you know, from this, from easily accessing these spirits?
Of course, we do. And we have been doing it with NAFDAC. I mean, that is the beauty of this case. We are on the same page with the measures that have been taken. As a matter of fact, most of it was determined by NAFDAC itself. The Ministry of Industry, the Ministry of Health, under the last Honorable Minister, did set up a committee that involved even the local governments that are responsible for issuing the off and on license. We had a scientific approach to this, and we were all on the same page, even with NAFDAC. And we were making progressive steps to achieve it. This is known to everyone, and we have expended more than 1 billion naira in terms of campaign, in on-site visits, in terms of deliberate restrictions, in terms of those who we certify as our distributors, including the education that we have taken to schools and so on and so forth. And they didn't even discount the fact that if you have things sold in smaller quantities, it then discourages people from taking it in larger quantities. All those things we have been doing together. And under this interministerial committee, we did commission a study that indicated that ban is not it. It could be counterproductive. Who is watching the massive smuggling of those items? Do you know the content? Is it not better for you to cooperate with local producers so that we'll be able to give you surveillance, we'll be able to give you market research, which you obviously don't have the capacity to undertake? Is it not better you cooperate with us so that jointly we'll be able to achieve your objective and also save businesses? These are tough times for Nigerians, and I believe that every regulatory agency of government should be alive to this situation we have and make the best of it. I mean, rather than demonize manufacturing industries that are doing legitimate business, and they are just bringing in models that would be able to improve the business environment. I believe the conversation should be more conciliatory, and we shouldn't take extreme measures, especially those ones that are likely to backfire.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Shegun Kadri, the Director General of Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, and wish you the very best at your event later on today, where I know you will be delving more into this. We do hope you have more handshake, you know, with NAFDAC and other stakeholders.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a delight. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, now let's head to the markets now and see how that's looking. Well, I guess it's no longer news that the norm has happened at the NGX. We see that the all-share index has been going down. I think at a point yesterday, intraday, it was just about 100, but thank God at the close of trade, it came up a bit, and it's at 101,227, down at the close of trade yesterday at down 0.86%. Equities cap is still at 55. Okay, we have the numbers right there. The equities cap at 55.39 trillion naira. Activity was in green, maybe just a little bit of boost, but you know, the value is the most important thing. Gainers yesterday were Mayor Paint and Tantalizers. Some of us don't remember Tantalizers, still there. Red Starex, and then losers were Nascon, Sterling, and Unity Bank. But I mean, of major interests to us this morning is the issue of the bonds. We know that Benin Republic, yeah, they got into the Eurobond space and the perform. And then, of course, we made a whole lot of noise about it. But I got a message from a government official yesterday saying that Nigeria's Eurobond was like the best performing last year. So of course I had to reach out to the market guys who have the numbers, and they said, yeah, well, we did well, but not enough for us to celebrate, and not enough to hit the 25%, which was claimed. Actually, you have bonds like from Ghana not doing so well. We remember last year that Ghana got a lot of hits. You know, they got their ratings reduced, and so of course their bonds were now reduced to junk. So that means they weren't doing so well. But Nigeria's bond was doing so well, but it's not something to beat our shoulders on. So you know, it would be nice to have an overview of Nigeria's bond performance for 2023, even as we head out to 2024, you know. And I know yesterday we talked about borrowings in the treasury space. And we saw, do you know that by the close of trade yesterday, the treasury yields, which was at 19% at the opening, beginning of the day, had dropped to 16%. So investors, wherever you go to, we're waiting for you. I guess that's it. So while the NGX is going down at this time, profit taking, people are selling off their stocks to get bolder in the fixed income space. The yields there are now reducing, so you might have to come back to the NGX, just maybe depending on your risk appetite. Yeah, all right. So I think we have Ladibelo now. He has some numbers. Should be able to crunch them together and tell us if really we did so well with our Eurobond in 2023. Hi, Ladibelo. Good morning from Access Bank, fixed income dealer.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so a government official reached out to me yesterday to say, oh, our Eurobond did so well. The yield hit 25% in 2023. I'll believe you more. You have the numbers. How did we do last year?
So in terms of the yields, yes, we did hit all-time highs. But what we should be looking at going into this year is the ability to sustain our debt in the foreseeable future. As we all know, we have sub-Saharan African countries who have issued Eurobonds in recent times, namely Benin Republic, as well as Ivory Coast. Ivory Coast floated their Eurobond across 2 maturities, and they were able to clear the longest tenor at around 8.25%, getting an overwhelming subscription at around 8 billion. But they were only comfortable selling 2.6 billion across the 2 maturities. When you look at Benin as well, these are both of them Francophone nations. So their Eurobonds are usually denominated in euros. This time around, they're denominated in USD. That's why they were partly able to garner more interest from some offshore parties. Benin has been fairly resilient in terms of the pace of its borrowing, and it's also a strong name within the SSA space, though a slightly lower credit rating when you compare it to Ivory Coast. But going into this year, we expect Nigeria to also float Eurobond issuances to roll over its existing obligations, and we are very confident that we'll be able to clear these rates at significantly low single-digit levels.
But now that we see domestic investors in Nigeria very thirsty, do you see the government going to Europe? That's more expensive. It just hikes our rates, our debts.
No, like I said before, I think we're able to raise these Eurobond issuances at single-digit levels. I'm sure you're aware of the NTB auction that was printed on Wednesday, which closed around 19%, which, like you rightfully said, has an effective yield of very close to 25%. So in terms of the debt burden, it's actually a bit cheaper now looking at the curve to float some of these debts in USD. And obviously, it's always good to balance your portfolio as we have USD receivables as a nation that's abundant with energy resources.
All right, Ladibelo, fixed income dealer with Access Bank. Thank you so much for your views this morning. So that's all from us here. I forgot to say, it's so good to have Maokwe in Lagos. I wish we were able to keep her for a little bit, Maokwe, so you breathe our air and enjoy what we enjoy. But back to the Sunrise team.